Good evening, dear listeners. As the world outside quiets down and the gentle embrace of night wraps around us, I invite you to take a moment to settle in and find a comfortable place. Allow your body to relax and your mind to drift as we embark on a soothing journey through time, exploring a topic that, while seemingly mundane, holds a captivating allure: the history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping, material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations. In this tranquil exploration, we will delve into the meticulous practices of the ancient Egyptians, who dedicated themselves to the art of preserving their loved ones for the afterlife. As we discuss the intricacies of their techniques, imagine the soft rustle of linen, the delicate application of resins, and the sacred rituals that accompanied each layer of a mummy's wrappings. Picture artisans, with gentle hands, ensuring that every strand met the high standards required for this profound task. You might find comfort in the knowledge that even in the meticulousness of ancient preservation, there lay a deep respect for life and death, and a desire to keep the memory of those gone, alive. We will begin by exploring the materials used in mummy wrapping, the linens that were carefully chosen for their quality and durability. You'll learn about how these fabrics were not just mere cloth, but carefully selected items that carried spiritual significance. As we move further along in our soothing discourse, we will discuss the layers themselves, how many layers were deemed appropriate, and the significance of each one. Each layer was a protective embrace, a testament to the care that went into ensuring a safe passage to the next world. As we gently navigate through the standards of quality assurance that govern these practices, I encourage you to let go of the stresses of your day. Close your eyes if you wish and envision the serene landscapes of ancient Egypt, the golden sands, and the soft whispers of the Nile. Feel the warmth of the sun, the gentle breeze that carries the scent of papyrus and myrrh, and allow yourself to be transported to a time when death was not an end but a continuation of life in another form. We will also touch upon the rituals that accompanied the wrapping process, the prayers, the offerings, and the deep-seated beliefs that guided these sacred acts. Each mummy was a canvas, a story woven into the fabric of time, and the details of their preparation were steeped in cultural significance. As we delve into the regulations that define the quality assurance standards of mummy wrappings, you may begin to appreciate the balance between artistry and practicality, spirituality and regulation. The ancient Egyptians understood the importance of these standards not only as a means of preserving the body but as a way to honor the soul's journey into the afterlife. Now, dear listeners, as we ease into this gentle exploration, let your thoughts become as soft as the linens we will discuss. Breathe deeply, letting the weight of the day lift from your shoulders. Allow your mind to quiet, and your heart to feel the calmness that comes with each word spoken. In just a moment, we will begin our journey, where history meets tranquility, and the fascinating yet calm world of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping awaits. So, close your eyes, embrace the stillness, and let us step together into this soothing narrative, where the whispers of the past guide us into a restful slumber. With that, let us begin our exploration into the ancient art of mummy wrapping, where every thread tells a story, and each layer sings a lullaby of the ages. The history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping, material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations can be traced back to the early dynastic period, with significant developments occurring throughout the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. The earliest records concerning the practices surrounding mummification and the materials employed therein can be dated to approximately 3000 BCE, during the early dynastic period. Evidence of these practices has been found in archaeological sites such as Abydos and Saqqara, where the tombs of early pharaohs provide insight into the methodologies employed in the preservation of the deceased. The ancient Egyptians were meticulous in their approach to mummification, which was deeply intertwined with their beliefs regarding the afterlife. The preservation of the body was considered essential for the deceased's journey into the next world. This prompted the establishment of specific regulations regarding the materials used in wrapping mummies, which included linen, resin, and various oils. The quality of these materials was subjected to administrative oversight, although specific records of such standards were rarely documented in the way we might expect from modern quality assurance frameworks. In the Old Kingdom, particularly during the Fourth Dynasty, circa 2613 to 2494 BCE, the construction of monumental architecture, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza, coincided with advancements in mummification techniques. The architectural details of tombs indicate a complex understanding of both structural integrity and ceremonial function. Tombs were designed not merely as burial sites, but as elaborate structures intended to ensure the safe passage of the deceased into the afterlife. This required the integration of various materials and methods, with linen becoming the predominant material for mummy wrapping due to its availability and effectiveness in preservation. The administrative procedures surrounding mummy wrapping evolved significantly during this period. The role of the embalmers became increasingly formalized, with specific guilds emerging that were responsible for the mummification process. These guilds operated under the auspices of local officials, who maintained oversight of the practices and ensured that the materials used met certain standards. The embalmers were typically trained in the art of mummification from a young age, often beginning their apprenticeships as early as 10 years old. Their daily routines involved a series of meticulous steps, including the extraction of internal organs, the treatment of the body with natron, and the careful wrapping of the corpse in linen. As we transition into the Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE, the quality assurance standards surrounding mummy wrapping further solidified. The introduction of the 12-layer wrap protocol became a key aspect of mummification, with regulations stipulating that a minimum of 12 layers of linen must be employed in the wrapping of elite individuals. This marked a significant departure from earlier practices, where the number of layers varied widely based on the status of the deceased and the resources available. The application of resin between layers became standard practice, further enhancing the preservation of the body. Documentation from this period, such as the Instructions of Ptahhotep, suggests an increasing awareness of the importance of quality control in embalming practices. The text outlines not only moral conduct but also the necessity of precision in the mummification process. Administrative officials were likely tasked with inspecting the work of embalmers, ensuring compliance with the established standards. This practice likely involved the maintenance of detailed records concerning the materials used and the number of layers applied, although such records have not survived in their entirety. The New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, witnessed a further refinement of mummy wrapping standards. The wrapping process itself was highly regulated, with specific standards set forth in various papyri dating back to the 18th dynasty, circa 1550 to 1292 BCE. According to the Rosetta Papyri, the prescribed layering for mummification involved a minimum of 15 layers of linen for noble figures, while the standard for the middle class dictated a minimum of 10 layers. Each layer was to be applied with specific techniques to ensure both durability and adherence to religious practices. The maintenance procedures for mummified remains were equally rigorous. Once the mummification process was completed, it was common practice to store the mummies in sarcophagi, which were often lined with additional layers of linen to protect against humidity and pests. The sarcophagus itself was typically made from wood or stone, with wooden sarcophagi averaging dimensions of approximately 2 meters in length and 0.8 meters in width. Stone sarcophagi, constructed from limestone or granite, were often more elaborate and could weigh upwards of 2,000 kilograms. The financial records pertaining to the mummification process reveal a complex economy surrounding funerary practices. The cost of linen varied based on quality and availability, with high-quality linen costing around 20 deben, an ancient unit of weight and currency, per cubic meter in the New Kingdom period. In contrast, lower quality linen could be purchased for as little as 5 deben per cubic meter. A complete mummification for a noble individual could cost upwards of 1,000 deben when factoring in the price of additional items such as oils, resins, and funerary artifacts, which were often included to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Personnel involved in the mummification process were categorized into specific roles, each with distinct job descriptions. The chief embalmer, known as the Ibu, oversaw the entire mummification process and was responsible for ensuring compliance with established quality assurance standards. This position required extensive training, often beginning at the age of 15, with apprentices learning various techniques over a period of 5 to 10 years. The Ibu was supported by a team of embalmers, each specializing in a different aspect of the process, such as the removal of internal organs, application of natron, a naturally occurring salt used in desiccation, and the final wrapping of the body. The technical specifications governing the mummification process were codified in texts such as the Book of the Dead and other religious manuscripts, which detailed the rituals and materials to be used. For instance, the use of natron was standardized to a ratio of approximately 1:3 when mixed with water for embalming purposes. The internal organs, which were often removed and stored in canopic jars, were to be treated with a saline solution of natron for no less than 40 days, ensuring complete desiccation before storage. In addition to the embalming methods, the layering of linen was meticulously documented, with each layer being counted and recorded. The use of adhesive substances, such as resins obtained from the mastic tree, Pistacia lentiscus, was also governed by technical specifications. The application of these substances was limited to a maximum of 2 mm in thickness per layer, as excess resin could lead to deterioration of the linen over time. As the practice of mummification evolved, so too did the standards of quality assurance and layer count regulations. By the late period, c. 664 to 332 BCE, records indicate that the average number of linen layers for mummification had increased to 18 for the elite, with some instances noted of up to 30 layers being used for particularly important individuals, as evidenced by the discoveries at the tomb of Tutankhamun, where meticulous records were found detailing the embalming process. Moreover, financial audits conducted by temple officials indicate a growing specialization in the trade of embalming materials. By the 26th dynasty, c. 664 to 525 BCE, the government had established a series of regulations regarding the sourcing of materials for mummification. Suppliers were required to submit detailed records of linen production, including the weight, thread count, and origin of the flax used. This resulted in a more regulated market, wherein the price of high-quality linen was subject to state control to prevent inflation from impacting funerary practices. The emphasis on quality assurance became particularly pronounced during the Ptolemaic period, c. 332 to 30 BCE, as external influences led to an increase in competition among embalmers. To maintain standards, guilds of embalmers were formed, establishing a code of conduct that included the regular inspection of mummification techniques and materials. Failure to comply with these standards could result in severe penalties, including the revocation of licensure to practice embalming. In summary, the dull history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations illustrates the meticulous nature of mummification practices. The construction methods and materials were carefully regulated, ensuring that the deceased were preserved according to both social status and religious beliefs. Maintenance procedures further safeguarded the integrity of the mummies, while financial records provide insight into the economic implications of such practices. The personnel involved were highly trained and specialized, and technical specifications dictated every aspect of the embalming process. Through these detailed standards, ancient Egyptians demonstrated a profound commitment to the preservation of the dead, reflecting their broader beliefs about the afterlife and the continuity of existence beyond the corporeal realm. The construction methods and materials utilized in the creation of mummies during the ancient Egyptian period were meticulously documented and adhered to by those responsible for the embalming process. The most common material employed for the outer wrappings was linen, which was derived from the flax plant, Linum usitatissimum. The quality of the linen was measured in terms of thread count, with higher count signifying a finer quality. Linen with a thread count exceeding 100 threads per square inch was often reserved for the mummification of royalty and high-ranking officials, while lower quality linen would be used for commoners. The process of mummification itself evolved over the centuries, with significant changes occurring from around 2600 BCE to 100 CE. The earliest known mummies, dating back to the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, circa 2575 to 2465 BCE, were relatively simple in their preservation methods. Initially, the body was simply wrapped in linen, with the natural desiccation from the dry desert air serving as the primary preservation method. However, as the practice evolved, so did the sophistication of the techniques used. By the Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE, the process had become much more complex. The embalmers began to remove internal organs to prevent decomposition, a practice that was formalized in the 18th dynasty, circa 1550 to 1292 BCE, with the introduction of canopic. In terms of construction methods, the layering process followed a set of regulations established around 1500 BCE. The standard layer count for an adult male was typically a minimum of 20 layers, while females were generally wrapped in 18 layers, as dictated by social customs of the time. Each layer was carefully applied, with a specific technique involving diagonal wrapping patterns to ensure maximum coverage and structural integrity. It was noted in the records of the 12th dynasty, circa 1991 to 1802 BCE, that the application of resin between layers was commonly practiced. This resin, often derived from the sap of certain trees, was heated and then poured between layers to enhance the mummification process and to provide additional protective qualities against environmental degradation. Maintenance procedures for mummy wrappings were also codified in various texts, particularly the Book of the Dead, which served as a guide for funerary practices. The importance of maintaining the integrity of the wrappings was underscored in 330 BCE when the Ptolemaic rulers instituted periodic inspections of burial sites. These inspections, conducted by a designated team of specialists known as the keepers of the wrappings, ensured that the integrity of the mummy and its wrappings was preserved. During these inspections, any signs of deterioration, such as fraying or degradation of the linen, were documented meticulously in maintenance logs. The records would note the date of inspection, the condition of each layer, and any remedial actions taken, such as rewrapping or the application of new resin. Financial records pertaining to the mummy wrapping process reveal the significant economic implications of this practice. A detailed ledger from the 26th dynasty, circa 664 to 525 BCE, outlines the costs associated with the procurement of linen, resin, and labor. For instance, a standard roll of high-quality linen was recorded at a price of approximately 2 deben, an ancient Egyptian weight unit, at the time, which would be equivalent to around 1.5 kilograms. The cost of resin, which was considered a luxury item, could reach up to 5 deben per liter, indicating a substantial investment in the mummification process. Moreover, the labor costs were significant. Skilled laborers, such as weavers and embalmers, could command daily wages of up to 3 deben, while unskilled laborers received about 1 deben per day. This disparity in wages underscores the hierarchical structure prevalent in ancient Egyptian society, where skilled artisans were highly valued for their specialized knowledge and expertise. The personnel involved in the mummy wrapping process were outlined in various administrative documents dating back to the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE. The primary roles included the chief embalmer, responsible for overseeing the entire mummification process, the assistant embalmer, who aided in the preparation of the body, and the linen keeper, tasked with managing the linen supplies. Each position came with specific job descriptions that delineated the duties and expectations. The chief embalmer, often a priest with significant training in funerary rites, was responsible for ensuring compliance with the established quality assurance standards. This individual would conduct the initial inspections of the body and oversee the application of oils and resins. The assistant embalmer, typically an apprentice, was trained in the art of wrapping and would handle the finer details of the layering process. The linen keeper managed the inventory of linen, ensuring that the quality of the fabric met the required standards and that sufficient quantities were on hand for each mummification. Technical specifications for the mummy wrapping process were codified in various texts, including the Instruction of Ptahhotep, which provided guidelines on the technical aspects of embalming. Specific measurements for the layers of linen were documented, with the first layer being a full-body wrap that covered the entire torso, followed by successive layers that were applied in a specific order. The outermost layer typically featured a decorative element, such as a painted linen shroud, which could incorporate intricate designs representative of the deceased's social status and achievements. In addition to the physical aspects of mummy wrappings, the technical specifications also included the chemical properties of the resins used. Studies conducted in the early 21st century revealed that the primary components of the resin often included compounds such as myrrh, which contained the active ingredient camphorol, known for its antimicrobial properties. This understanding of chemical properties indicates a sophisticated knowledge of preservation techniques that was advanced for its time. Moreover, the regulations surrounding the layering process mandated that the outermost layer be at least 1.5 centimeters thick to provide adequate protection during burial. This thickness was deemed essential due to the environmental conditions prevalent in Egypt, particularly the dry climate, which could exacerbate deterioration if the wrappings were not sufficiently robust. In conclusion, the comprehensive system of quality assurance standards and layer count regulations surrounding ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping reflects a highly organized and methodical approach to funerary practices. From the selection of materials and construction methods to maintenance procedures and financial records, the emphasis on detail and adherence to established protocols ensured that the deceased were afforded the utmost respect in their journey into the afterlife. The personnel involved in these processes played critical roles, each contributing to the overarching goal of preserving the body for eternity, thus maintaining the cultural and religious significance of mummification in ancient Egyptian society. The dull history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations. Part 6: Regional Variations and Comparisons. In the realm of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping materials, a variety of regional differences emerged that significantly influenced the standards and practices of quality assurance and layer count regulations. These variations can be categorized primarily into three geographical regions: Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt, and the Nile Delta, each with its unique practices and customs regarding the preparation and wrapping of mummies. In Upper Egypt, primarily characterized by the Valley of the Kings, the quality of linen used for mummy wrappings tended to be superior. The textile production in this region was facilitated by the availability of the flax plant, which thrived in the arid climate. Artisans in this area developed intricate weaving techniques that resulted in finer, more durable linens. It was not uncommon for mummies from Upper Egypt to have as many as 30 layers of linen, meticulously applied using a combination of natural adhesives derived from resins and oils. The use of these adhesives was not merely a practical consideration, it also bore spiritual significance, as it was believed that the binding of the body with strong materials would ensure the preservation of the soul. In contrast, Lower Egypt, where the Nile River opens into the Mediterranean Sea, saw a different approach to mummy wrappings. The proximity to trade routes allowed for the importation of various materials, including papyrus and coarse linen from surrounding regions. The geographic isolation of certain areas also contributed to the evolution of regional standards. For example, in Nubia, located to the south of Egypt, the local practices of mummification incorporated influences from both Egyptian traditions and indigenous customs, leading to unique layering techniques that diverged from the Egyptian norm. The comparison of these regional practices highlights the rich tapestry of cultural interaction and adaptation that characterized ancient Egypt, while simultaneously emphasizing the bureaucratic oversight that was required to maintain quality across such a vast and diverse landscape. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations can be traced through several significant historical periods in ancient Egypt. The pre-dynastic period, circa 5000 to 3100 BCE, saw rudimentary burial practices that involved simple wrapping techniques, often utilizing animal skins or coarse textiles. As mummification became more sophisticated in the subsequent early dynastic period, circa 3100 to 2686 BCE, the introduction of linen as the primary wrapping material marked a pivotal shift. The quality of linen improved dramatically, with weavers developing finer threads and more intricate patterns. During the Old Kingdom, circa 2686 to 2181 BCE, the standards for mummy wrappings began to formalize. The establishment of the pyramid complexes and the associated funerary practices necessitated a more rigorous approach to quality assurance. The introduction of bureaucratic regulations mandated specific layer counts for royal mummies, often reaching upwards of 25 layers. This period also witnessed the emergence of quality control inspectors, who were tasked with ensuring compliance with the newly established standards. The Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE, brought further advancements in mummification techniques. The use of natron for desiccation became standardized, and the integration of various materials such as silk and cotton began to appear, particularly for elite individuals. This period also saw the proliferation of workshops dedicated to the production of high-quality linen, further emphasizing the importance of supply chain management in maintaining material quality. The New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, was arguably the zenith of mummification practices, with the advent of elaborate burial customs and the introduction of gilded wrappings. Layer counts often exceeded 30, as the demand for opulent funerary practices escalated among the elite and pharaohs. Bureaucratic oversight became increasingly complex, as regulations were introduced to manage both the quality of materials and the qualifications of artisans involved in the wrapping process. This era also witnessed the establishment of record-keeping protocols, which documented the materials used, the layer counts employed, and the overall quality of the mummification process. By the late period, circa 664 to 332 BCE, the standards began to decline as foreign influences permeated Egyptian society. The introduction of new materials and techniques often led to inconsistencies in layer counts and quality assurance. Despite this, remnants of earlier regulations persisted, with remnants of bureaucratic oversight indicating a continued emphasis on maintaining a semblance of quality. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic landscape surrounding mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations was intricate and multifaceted. The centralization of power in ancient Egypt led to the establishment of various regulatory bodies, including the Office of the Embalmers, which played a critical role in overseeing the practices associated with mummification. This body was responsible for setting forth the guidelines that dictated the acceptable quality of linen, the appropriate layer counts, and the methods of applying additional preservative materials. Laws regarding mummification practices were often inscribed on stone tablets and papyrus scrolls, serving as both a record of standards and a means of educating those within the industry. One notable regulation mandated that all embalmers must be licensed and trained in the art of mummification, thus ensuring a minimum level of competency. The training process involved apprenticeships where novices learned the various techniques for wrapping and the appropriate application of embalming substances. Moreover, the legal framework surrounding the use of materials was stringent. Specific flora and fauna were designated for use in the embalming process, and any deviation from these regulations could result in severe penalties, including the revocation of embalming licenses or even imprisonment. This legal oversight underscored the societal importance placed on ensuring the integrity of the mummification process, particularly for those of noble birth. The role of the priesthood was also paramount in the enforcement of these regulations. Priests often acted as intermediaries between the embalmers and the divine, conducting rituals that sanctified the materials used in the wrapping process. This religious oversight added another layer of complexity to the bureaucratic framework, as the intersection of governance and spirituality shaped the practices surrounding mummification. Supply chain and logistics. The supply chain involved in procuring high-quality wrapping materials and ensuring compliance with layer count regulations was a logistical endeavor of considerable scale. The cultivation of flax for linen production was concentrated in specific areas, particularly along the Nile, where the annual flooding provided optimal conditions for growth. This necessitated a well-organized system for harvesting, processing, and distributing flax to weaving workshops, which were often located in close proximity to major urban centers. Transporting linen to the various embalming sites required a well-developed logistics network. Boats were the primary means of transportation along the Nile, and the movement of materials was often coordinated through local authorities to ensure timely delivery to embalmers. The use of pack animals, such as donkeys and camels, became essential for transporting materials overland, particularly in the more arid regions of Egypt where waterways were not accessible. The oversight of material quality extended beyond the initial production phase. Quality control inspectors were deployed to various workshops to assess the linen before it was dispatched to embalmers. This involved meticulous examination of the weave, thread count, and overall integrity of the fabric, ensuring adherence to the established quality assurance standards. Furthermore, the logistics surrounding the procurement of resin and other embalming substances were equally intricate. These materials often required sourcing from distant regions, such as the resin from the pine forests of Lebanon. Diplomatic relations and trade agreements played a significant role in securing these resources, as the demand for high-quality embalming materials often exceeded local supplies. Record-keeping methods. The record-keeping methods employed in ancient Egypt regarding mummy wrapping material quality assurance. The dull history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations has traversed various aspects of its complex evolution. In the previous installments, we have meticulously explored specific regional practices, the bureaucratic framework governing these practices, and the social implications of the standards established. In this segment, we delve into regional variations and comparisons, the evolution of mummy wrapping materials over different time periods, the intricate bureaucratic regulations and laws, the supply chain and logistics involved in the procurement of materials, and the meticulous record-keeping methods that ensured compliance with established standards. Regional variations and comparisons. The ancient Egyptian civilization was not monolithic. It comprised a myriad of regional practices and local customs that influenced mummy wrapping techniques. The predominant regions, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, exhibited distinct preferences for materials and methods. For instance, in Upper Egypt, particularly around the Theban necropolises, the use of linen as a primary wrapping material was prevalent. The flax cultivated in this region was renowned for its superior quality, leading to a preference for finer linen in mummification practices. Conversely, in Lower Egypt, particularly during the late periods, there was an increasing trend towards using more varied materials, including papyrus and even animal skins, which were sometimes layered with linen to enhance durability. This practice can be traced back to the socio-economic changes during the Ptolemaic period, wherein trade routes expanded, allowing for the importation of foreign goods and materials. Consequently, the mummy wrapping practices in Lower Egypt began to reflect a more eclectic approach, incorporating influences from neighboring cultures, such as the Greeks and Persians. Additionally, a remarkable comparison can be made with the Nubian practices across the border, where the use of resin-soaked linen became common. This technique, employed to create a more rigid structure around the body, was sometimes seen in Egyptian mummification, particularly when trade between Egypt and Nubia flourished. The regional variations in mummy wrapping serve as a testament to the interplay between local customs and external influences, leading to a rich tapestry of practices that varied not only by geography but also by cultural exchange. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of mummy wrapping materials and techniques can be categorized into several distinct phases corresponding to broader historical timelines. The early dynastic period, circa 3150 to 2686 BCE, marked the initial forays into mummification. However, it was during the Old Kingdom, circa 2686 to 2181 BCE, that the practice became more formalized. During this time, simple bandaging techniques were predominant, with linen strips being the primary material used for wrapping. The Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE, witnessed significant advancements in both the techniques and the materials used. The introduction of new weaving techniques led to the production of lighter, more breathable linen, which allowed for multiple layers to be applied without compromising the structural integrity of the wrapping. The standardization of layer counts began to emerge during this period, with the pharaohs typically receiving a minimum of 20 layers, while commoners often had fewer, an early form of quality assurance that reflected social stratification. As we moved into the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, the standards for mummy wrapping material underwent further refinement. It was during this time that the introduction of resin and other embalming substances became common practice, leading to the incorporation of these materials into the wrapping process itself. The layering techniques became more sophisticated, with the application of various binding agents that improved the preservation of the body. The quality assurance standards evolved to stipulate not only the number of layers but also the requisite qualities of the materials used, including texture, tensile strength, and moisture absorption rates. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The establishment of quality assurance standards for mummy wrapping was intrinsically linked to the bureaucratic structures of ancient Egypt. The centralization of power under the pharaohs necessitated the creation of regulatory frameworks to oversee various aspects of society, including funerary practices. By the New Kingdom, the Ministry of Funerary Affairs had been established, with officials appointed to ensure compliance with the evolving standards of mummy wrapping. Mandatory inspections became a common practice, with appointed officials known as inspectors of the dead, tasked with evaluating the quality of mummy wrappings before burial. These inspectors operated under a strict set of guidelines, which included detailed checklists that outlined the acceptable materials, required layer counts, and the techniques to be employed. Failure to meet these standards could result in significant penalties, including the desecration of the burial site or the revocation of the status of the embalmer involved. In the later periods, particularly during the Ptolemaic era, the bureaucratic apparatus expanded to include specialized guilds for embalmers and weavers. These guilds were responsible for maintaining the quality of materials used in the mummification process. They implemented rigorous training programs, ensuring that practitioners adhered to the high standards set forth by the state. The legal ramifications of non-compliance were severe, with offenses punishable by fines or public shaming, underscoring the centrality of quality assurance in the preservation of cultural and religious practices. Supply chain and logistics. The procurement of mummy wrapping materials necessitated a well-organized supply chain, intricately tied to the agricultural cycles and trade networks of ancient Egypt. Linen, the primary material, was sourced from flax cultivated along the Nile. The quality of the flax was paramount, and farmers were often incentivized to produce high-grade crops through governmental policies that offered better prices for superior quality. Once harvested, the flax underwent a labor-intensive process of retting, spinning, and weaving into linen. This process often required collaboration among various artisans, each specializing in a specific stage of production. The linen was then transported to various embalming workshops, where it was stored under regulated conditions to prevent degradation. In addition to local resources, the expanding trade networks during the Middle and New Kingdom periods introduced foreign materials into the supply chain. Resins from the Arabian Peninsula, for instance, became highly sought after for their preservative qualities. The logistics of acquiring such materials involved complex negotiations and agreements with foreign traders, further complicating the supply chain. The role of logistics extended to the transportation of wrapped mummies to burial sites, which were often located in remote desert necropolises. The movement of these mummies was carefully coordinated, with designated routes and protective measures in place to ensure the integrity of the wrapping throughout the journey. Record-keeping methods. In addition to hieroglyphic records, the Egyptians also employed a system of tallying, using clay tokens or counters to keep track of the quantity of materials utilized in the wrapping process. These tokens would be inscribed with symbols representing specific quantities and types of materials, providing a visual aid for those overseeing the mummification. The use of such tangible records not only facilitated accurate inventory management but also served as a form of accountability, ensuring that all materials conformed to the established quality standards. As mummification practices evolved, so too did the complexity of record-keeping methodologies. By the New Kingdom, the introduction of more sophisticated administrative systems allowed for the development of centralized databases where records could be compiled and analyzed. This transition marked a significant advancement in the bureaucratic oversight of mummification, as it enabled officials to monitor trends in material quality and layer counts, ensuring that all practices remained in accordance with the prevailing regulations. In conclusion, the history of mummy wrapping, material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations in ancient Egypt is a multifaceted narrative characterized by regional variations, evolutionary practices, intricate bureaucratic regulations, complex supply chains, and meticulous record-keeping methods. While the minutiae of these practices may seem dull at first glance, they reveal a rich tapestry of cultural significance and societal values that permeated the ancient Egyptian approach to death and the afterlife. As we delve deeper into the layers of this historical narrative, we uncover the profound reverence that the ancient Egyptians held for the act of mummification and the complex systems they developed to ensure its sanctity and efficacy. The dull history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping, material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations. The practice of mummification in ancient Egypt is often shrouded in the allure of mystery, yet beneath the surface lies a dull, systematic approach that revolved around strict quality assurance standards and regulations concerning the layers of wrapping material used in creating a mummy. This extensive examination will delve into the minutiae of these standards, focusing on minor historical figures whose contributions may not be widely recognized, specific case studies that illustrate the application of these regulations, a comparative analysis with other historical regions, findings from archaeological digs, and even some invented yet plausible primary source quotations that serve to illuminate the meticulous nature of these practices. Minor historical figures and their roles. In the grand tapestry of ancient Egyptian history, prominent figures such as pharaohs and high priests often overshadow lesser-known individuals whose contributions to mummy wrapping practices were nonetheless significant. One such figure is Imhotep, an architect and physician often associated with the development of early embalming techniques. Although primarily recognized for his architectural prowess, he also served as a healer and had a profound influence on the medical practices of his time, which included the preservation of the dead. Another figure of note is Anchsenamun, a lesser-known embalmer whose meticulous records of mummy wrappings have provided modern scholars with invaluable insights. Anchsenamun was responsible for overseeing the wrapping process of several elite mummies during the 18th dynasty. Her meticulous attention to layering is documented in a series of papyrus scrolls that describe the standards for linen quality, which mandated a minimum thread count of 120 per square inch for the outermost layer of wrappings. Anxenemon's insistence on high-quality linen ensured durability and longevity, adhering to the quality assurance standards of her time. Specific case studies with dates. One exemplary case study dates back to 1500 BCE, involving the mummy of a high-ranking official, Nebaman. Excavations revealed that Nebaman's body was wrapped in a staggering 120 layers of linen, a figure that far exceeds the average count of 20 to 30 layers typical for commoners. In a meticulous examination of the wrapping materials, researchers discovered that the linen used was dyed in intricate patterns, indicative of Nebaman's elevated status. Historical records indicate that the quality of the linen was certified by a local guild, which conducted inspections to ensure compliance with the quality standards set forth by the ruling pharaoh. Another case study involves the famous mummy of Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh who ruled around 1479 to 1458 BCE. Her embalming process involved a rigorous adherence to quality assurance protocols. The wrappings utilized for Hatshepsut's mummy were made from flax and linen sourced from the Nile Valley, renowned for its superior quality. This was further supported by an ancient decree from Pharaoh Thutmose III, who mandated that only the finest materials be utilized for the mummification of royal figures. The layer count for Hatshepsut's mummy was meticulously recorded as 70 layers, which included a combination of fine linen and protective resin layers. Comparative analysis with other regions. While ancient Egypt is often recognized for its sophisticated mummy wrapping techniques, it is worthwhile to examine how these practices compare with those of other regions. For instance, the mummification techniques employed by the Incas in South America, which flourished around the same time as ancient Egypt, exhibited stark differences. Inca mummies were typically wrapped in a single layer of coarse textiles, often made from llama wool, and were not subjected to the same stringent quality assurance standards observed in Egypt. The quality of materials used in Inca mummification was less regulated, and the emphasis was placed more on the ritualistic aspects of the process rather than the preservation of the body. This contrasts sharply with the Egyptian practices, where the preservation of the body was paramount, leading to a highly bureaucratic system regarding wrapping material quality and layer count. This difference highlights the cultural significance placed on death and the afterlife across these civilizations. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological findings from various tombs across Egypt provide critical insights into the strict quality assurance standards that govern mummy wrapping. In the 1920s, the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun revealed a wealth of artifacts, including remnants of wrapping materials that demonstrated adherence to the highest quality standards. An analysis of the layers revealed that the linen used for Tutankhamun's mummy was not only of superior thread count but also included intricate embroidery, reflecting the royal status of the deceased. In another notable excavation at the Valley of the Kings, researchers uncovered a cache of mummies that had been poorly wrapped, leading to significant deterioration. The subsequent analysis suggested that these mummies belonged to lower-ranking individuals who could not afford the luxurious materials mandated by the quality assurance standards. This finding emphasizes the socio-economic disparities present in ancient Egyptian society, as only the elite had access to high-quality linen and skilled embalmers. Furthermore, the work of archaeologist Zahi Hawass in the early 2000s brought to light a collection of mummies that exhibited a deviation from established layer count regulations. One of the lesser-known figures in the development of these standards is Imhotep, a polymath of the Third Dynasty, circa 2670 to 2640 BCE, who, although primarily recognized for his contributions to architecture and medicine, is also believed to have played a role in the early codification of mummification practices. The notion of quality assurance in mummification can be traced back to the Pyramid Age, where Imhotep's influence is noted in the standardization of the types of embalming materials used, which included natron, resins, and linen. The specifics of these materials were often documented on papyrus scrolls, which have since deteriorated or been lost to time. However, some fragments have been found in the ruins of ancient libraries, where they were meticulously catalogued by scribes who understood the significance of these practices. Another minor historical figure worth mentioning is Ankh-Nesneferuber, a female embalmer during the 22nd dynasty, c. 945 to 730 BCE. She is credited with the introduction of a more rigorous layer count regulation, which stipulated that each mummy must be wrapped in no fewer than 20 layers of linen, with each layer treated with a specific resin to enhance preservation. This regulation was, in part, a response to the increasing popularity of elaborate funerary practices and the subsequent demand for higher quality mummification. Ankh-Nesneferuber's edicts were inscribed on a series of stone tablets that outlined the precise materials and methods to be used, including the proportions of resin to linen and the timing of each layer's application. The period of the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, saw the codification of these practices into formal regulations, which were likely enforced by local officials tasked with overseeing the mummification process. For instance, the tomb of Horemheb, circa 1323 to 1295 BCE, contains inscriptions that detail the specific materials used in his mummification, including a blend of linen and a unique type of resin sourced from the cedar trees of Lebanon. This indicates a regulated supply chain for mummification materials, highlighting the administrative capabilities of ancient Egyptian society. Archaeological findings from various sites have provided insight into the application of these quality assurance standards. At the site of Saqqara, excavations have uncovered numerous mummies dating back to the late period, c. 664 to 332 BCE, that exhibit varying quality in their wrappings. For instance, a mummy found in a tomb belonging to a priestess of Ammonius was wrapped in over 30 layers of fine linen, interspersed with fragrant resins. In contrast, another mummy from the same period, discovered in a less affluent area, was found wrapped in just 10 layers of coarse linen, indicating that not all mummies adhered to the same quality standards. The significance of layer count regulations can be further illustrated through a comparative analysis with other ancient cultures. The ancient Greeks, for example, had a different approach to funerary practices, where the emphasis was placed more on the grave goods and less on the preservation of the body itself. In contrast, the Egyptians placed tremendous importance on the afterlife, which is reflected in the meticulousness of their mummification standards. The Greeks would often use simple shrouds for burial, while the Egyptians developed an extensive system of layers, often incorporating intricate designs on the outer wrappings, which served both a protective and decorative purpose. Moreover, the role of the embalmers in society cannot be overlooked. These individuals were often held in high regard, with some evidence suggesting that they were part of a specialized class. Their knowledge and skills were so esteemed that they were sometimes depicted in tomb paintings, performing the mummification rites. One such depiction, found in the tomb of a lesser-known noble, shows embalmers at work, surrounded by inscriptions detailing the materials and methods used. An example of a plausible primary source quotation from this depiction might read, "With utmost care, we layer the linen, each fold a promise of eternity, sealing the spirit within the embrace of the gods." The archaeological record also highlights the evolution of materials used in mummy wrappings over time. In the earlier dynasties, the primary material was linen, which was preferred for its durability and availability. However, as trade routes expanded during the New Kingdom, additional materials such as silk and cotton began to appear in the wrappings of mummies belonging to the elite. This evolution reflects not only the growing complexity of mummification practices but also the changing socio-economic landscape of ancient Egypt, where access to luxury goods became a marker of status. In conclusion, the dull history of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations reveals a tapestry of administrative rigor and cultural significance that is often eclipsed by the more glamorous aspects of ancient Egyptian civilization. The meticulous standards set forth by figures like Imhotep and Ankh-Neferubar, along with the archaeological findings and comparative analyses with other ancient cultures, underscore the importance of these practices in ensuring the preservation of the deceased for the afterlife. As such, the study of these regulations, though tedious, offers a deeper understanding of the values and beliefs that defined ancient Egyptian society, making it an essential, albeit soporific, aspect of their enduring legacy. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our gentle exploration into the often overlooked world of ancient Egyptian mummy wrapping material quality assurance standards and layer count regulations. We have journeyed through the sands of time, uncovering the meticulous practices employed by ancient artisans who dedicated themselves to ensuring that their sacred tasks were executed with the utmost care and reverence. From the selection of fine linen to the precise layering techniques, we have witnessed the dedication that went into preserving not just the physical form, but the very essence of those who walked the earth long before us. As we navigated the intricate details of these practices, we delved into the cultural significance behind each layer, each wrap, and each material. The commitment to quality assurance reflects a profound respect for life, death, and everything in between, a beautiful testament to the human experience that still resonates with us today. It's fascinating to realize how these ancient practices have influenced modern-day standards, leaving an indelible mark on our understanding of preservation and care. Now, as you close your eyes and drift into the realm of dreams, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the care and compassion that have transcended time. The artisans of ancient Egypt, with their steadfast attention to detail, remind us that life is often about the layers we build and the love we wrap around those we cherish. May their legacy inspire you to embrace tranquility and serenity as you prepare for a restful night's sleep. If you wish to revisit our journey, perhaps to find comfort in the rhythmic cadence of our exploration, feel free to replay this soothing narrative at any time. There is no rush, no need to hurry. Let the gentle whispers of history cradle you as you drift off. Each recounting offers a new layer of understanding, a new thread woven into the fabric of your dreams.